Welcome everyone to our informational video about your world, your life in context. Pairing Humanities 101 with Spanish 303 as a living learning community with 6 credit hours that meet general education requirements. I'm going to let my colleague, Dr. Rodrick, introduce a little bit how these courses came together.
Hi, everybody. We are really excited that you are looking at this. We love this combination of classes, and it may appear to you as though these things might not fit together at all because my humanities, as we'll see in a minute, is based on the problems in 1850s England, whereas the Spanish 303 is a today class. It's a class that is rooted in the present. But Dr. Barbas-Rhoden and I discovered years ago that we are dealing with many of the same questions in each of these classes. Because of course, civic engagement and the problems of poverty and clean cities, et cetera, don't start today. They didn't start last year. They started really as a serious problem in the 1900s. And so we decided that we would try to put these two things together and see what were the commonalities between 1850 and today, what kinds of questions were being asked then and that are being asked now, and how we can kind of understand our world today in a historical context, as well as in terms of our own sort of lived experience and environment. So we've been doing this for years, and it's just a joy to teach, and our students say that it's really, pretty darn exciting to be in it. So.
Yeah, it's fantastic to offer you a chance to have your Spanish in context and to deepen your learning through a Humanities 101 at the same time. So again, thrilled you're here to listen and join us. We'll tell you a little bit about each course, but first we thought we might say a little bit about ourselves. I am Laura Barbas-Rhoden, faculty member in modern languages. My area of work is in the environmental humanities. And here you have a picture of me in the outdoors with one of my 2 kids in Spain doing a little bit of sea kayaking. I'll pass the baton to Anne.
And this is me giving a talk at the Hub City Bookshop, a place that you will, I hope, grow to absolutely love in your time here in Spartanburg. I have been here as long as Dr. Barbas-Rhoden. We came in together, which seems like a bazillion years ago. I am a historian, so I'm in the history department, and I'm also the director of the humanities program. My historical field is indeed 19th century Britain, and I am particularly interested in questions of citizenship and belonging and participation. And so that's one of the threads that we will be following in our humanities class. So Humanities 101, you know already, I suspect, that every incoming first year has to take a Humanities 101 for 3 credit hours. And you also probably have seen that there are about 30 different sections. Each of those sections deals with some kind of big question about ethics and values. And so this one deals with poverty and wealth in Manchester, England in 1850. It's again, poverty and wealth were not invented in 1850, but this is the year or the period in which the issues of being a human person in what was a city that seemed to be more and more inhuman really caught the attention of all kinds of people, not just what we would call social scientists, although those were certainly there, but also novelists, poets, journalists, social critics, ministers, all kinds of people really were grappling with what do we do about the problems of poverty and the squalor of the city, and how can we make our immediate world more livable, and whether we use a religious lens for that or something else. This was the big question that occupied many, many, many people who were writing for others during this period. Many of the questions that they were dealing with are the same ones that challenge us today. How do we deal with poverty in a city? Do we talk about top-down solutions or bottom-up solutions? And so again, the links here between what happened in the past and what is happening today are really quite profound. The reading in this class centers around the novel Mary Barton, which came out in 1860, but was about Manchester in the 1850s. It has murder, it has romance, it has all kinds of really interesting issues about politics and society. And it has a happy ending, I will tell you that. And then we supplement that with a lot of writing from journalists and social critics from the period. So we're going to be doing a lot of reading in another period, which is not a different language, but may feel a little bit like that, and you'll get very fluent in that language. Lots of different kinds of writing and lots of discussion. So no question is too obscure or too obvious for this class. And the more questions, the better. I think you'll really grow to love it.
Based on past experience and the lively conversations that sometimes precede my even walking into the classroom about the novel and the topics in Humanities 101, I am in wholehearted agreement that you will find it really an interesting and fun class. And for the Spanish side of things, I'll tell you a little bit more about Spanish 303. We have multiple sections of Spanish 303. They are all advanced Spanish with community-based learning. If you are a first-year student, you'll be in good company. About 40 to 50% of the enrollment in Spanish 303 are first-year students, about half are sophomores. Spanish 303 satisfies the language requirement for general education, just like Spanish 201. If you have several hours or several years of Spanish, you'll be invited to consider Spanish 303. If you take it successfully as a first-year student and make a C or better in the course, you receive an additional 6 hours of credit for Spanish 201, 202, an acknowledgement that you leveled up and have done well in 303 and merit the credit for those preceding courses. So the topic is, again, advanced Spanish with community-based learning. That community-based means that we'll be interacting with community partners. It's year 21 of our partnership, and that gives you a really good experience operating at the local level and thinking about the historical context as well as the global dynamics that shape a city like Spartanburg. And those questions that you think about in humanities absolutely come up in our discussion. So what does it look like when there are flows of people to a city? What history do they bring with them? How do people talk about those experiences, whether they're city leaders or county leaders, or they're individuals making their way through the world searching for opportunity? The class uses content-based instruction, which is modern languages, language acquisition jargon for using content to push your proficiency. So language operates in context, right? And you speak every day, probably not just for the sake of speaking, but for communication of some sort of meaningful information. Content-based instruction, our course has to do with the question of how did the world get to be the way it is now? What sorts of things can we understand about the past and about the present that make it a little bit easier to figure out the dynamics and to really ponder those ethical questions ourselves of our relationships with others. The emphasis is on intercultural learning and global learning and all 4 language skills. So listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
So what do we do together? First of all, I want to tell you that for all the years I've been doing this, I speak 0 Spanish. So it is very possible to have a very meaningful combination of these classes, even if you are not deeply involved in both of these areas. You will learn the connections and you will have really a great time. And Dr. Barbas-Rhoden and I talk to each other almost every day. So not only do we talk about how everyone is doing, but we also talk about the work that we are doing at the time. Is this paper topic something that that we ought to be talking about in both classes? Can we talk about the components of some of this journalism as something that is appropriate to both? One good example is when in the Spanish class, you are looking at the issue of supply chains. Dr. Barbas-Rhoden came to me a couple of years ago and said, I need a good topic on, on supply chains. And we found an article about the Victorian king of guano, a man in 19th century Britain who made a huge amount of money importing bird poop. And so, that's not something you think about as having a supply chain. It absolutely did. And in the 19th century, it looked really, really interesting. So again, it is amazing the kinds of things that we kind of pull together. We have a budget for lunches and dinners out, and we also have a budget for guest speakers to come in and invite us to explore different ideas and activities in the community. We've already lined up a couple of people for the fall, and we are working on a few more. We try to get people who are really grounded in Spartanburg, because that's where you are going to be living for the next 4 years. And we want you to understand as fully as possible what your new city is like and how exciting it can be and the kinds of changes and opportunities there are here. So lots of community connections that are going to come with the sort of extracurriculars that we do.
Yeah, fantastic. And as Dr. Rodrick said, in our Spanish class, we do some of these sort of fun project-based learning activities. And the guano example was a really perfect example for thinking about the interconnections in the world between Peru and between England, and thinking about industrialization and all the demands on agriculture and all the potential for wealth and the movement of people and stuff, in this case, guano, around the world. So super exciting to explore connections in these two classes, and also to really explore and foster the connections with communities beyond the academic community of Wofford. So yes to community, you'll hear that often. And I put two fun pictures here. One of a student who graduated several years ago and is involved in leadership positions in education now at a family event at our Arch after school program site partner. You can see kids and families gathered there for a dinner Wofford students organized alongside our partners. And then in the other, students from a couple of our different LLCs gathered for a photo shoot for some work associated with research that we did in the summer to encourage healthy eating and active living among children and youth in the Spartanburg community. So it's a stellar group there. Some just graduated, some you'll still see on campus leading, and I hope you'll have a chance to form community with those who've been in our classes previously. The question you may all be asking, especially after your pandemic high school experiences, how do I know if my Spanish is good enough? The easy answer is to ask me. Usually about half the students who are invited take me up on that offer, send you a couple of questions and instructions to respond to a prompt, or offer you a chance to be on the phone with me or on a Zoom call, and we can figure out if this feels like a good placement for you. The short version is that students with 4 or more years of Spanish are invited to consider 303, whether it's an LLC or just a plain 303. Heritage speakers are invited to consider 303 if we can figure out from the documents that are shared with our department that you're a heritage speaker. So if you know of someone who's a heritage speaker and they didn't get the invitation, please encourage them to speak up. Out of class experiences absolutely matter. So if you've lived or traveled in Spanish language context and had some extra proficiency practice that's not reflected on your transcript, by all means, let us know. If you're worried about grades, I understand. I have kids that sometimes fret about grades. In Spanish, part of the language acquisition process is learning to recognize those affective and psychological responses. And in order to kind of minimize that and create an atmosphere that is as conducive to your learning as possible, I use labor-based contract grading. I give explicit guides step-by-step for how to learn with each video and reading. And I do mean they are very explicit step-by-step guides. Students have said they are very helpful in learning how to acquire language so that they can take those skills into all sorts of other contexts. But for me, it's important that you start where you are and that you get better. And there is a method to doing that. There are probably many methods, but I try to teach you at least a few, and ones that I am absolutely certain that your effort will be in the direction that you want to go, which is getting better. And I'll turn it over to Anne to wrap up and talk about how we celebrate our students and celebrate you.
I will tell you that In all the years that we have done this LLC, we have watched many of our students go on to become really very significant student leaders on campus, and then go on to achieve great things after graduation. It is something to sort of underscore that this LLC fits you for many, many, many paths at Wofford because of the skills that we are emphasizing: the critical thinking, writing in many different modes, able to analyze, able to connect with a community. And especially because, again, these are two classes that don't seem on the face of it to necessarily belong together, your ability to find connections across subject matter, across time and space, across people and communities. Those are really important, very, very highly valued skills. And the two people you see here are two of our former students. Will is a med student, second year. He was a bio major. And Victoria was a Spanish major, is that correct?
They were both Spanish.
Spanish, okay.
Spanish and bio, and Victoria's Spanish and International Affairs.
Okay, so so there are many, many things that come out of this class, and one of them that we really like to talk about is the fact that you are opening the world to all kinds of possibilities with this LLC, again, because of the skills that you will develop. We don't talk much about the transferable skills of being able to connect content across time and space. It's a very, very important skill, and it's one that you will absolutely come out of on top of when you take this LLC.
And we did have one last slide to tell you how to be in touch with us, but I see that I put it in the wrong order. So you'll see the human side of us
Yes.
saying reach out, Barbas-Rhoden LH at wofford.edu and Rodrick AB at wofford.edu. Feel free to be in touch with us if you have questions. I suspect this is probably also in the written materials you're getting around orientation, but we thought we'd make it easy for you here on that last slide to reach out to us. And we hope you'll have a chance to say hello in the fall, and we hope very much that will be as we see you on the first day or two of class in our LLC.
Yes, we are very excited about this class because every time we teach it, we fall in love with it even more. So we want you to join us on that journey. And remember, as I tell my students all the time, we are practicing, we are developing our skills, and that's what we're doing. We are not coming in perfect. We are coming in ready to get better. So, and in all kinds of things.